Hey guys, we are here for the last section in chapter 13. Today we're going to be finding the volume of a sphere. And here we go. Without further ado, let's go right to the formula. The formula for the volume of a sphere. All right, the formula is volume equals 4/3 times pi times the radius cubed. All right, a sphere is like a ball. Technically, it's all points in space that are the same distance from a given point. So here you can see we have a picture of a sphere. Kind of looks like a ball, right? Let's go right to it. Find the volume of the sphere at the left, include units. And I'm going to go ahead and round my answer to the nearest tenth. So, the first thing I need to do, or the first thing I like to do, is write down the formula. Volume equals 4/3 times pi times the radius cubed. So one thing I'm going to need is I'm going to need the radius. That's really the only thing I need to find the volume of a sphere, is I need to know the radius. And in this picture over here, I was given the diameter, right? The diameter is the distance all the way across. The radius would be the distance halfway across. So in this case, the radius would equal 4 inches. So let's go ahead and substitute that into the formula. And at the same time, I will put 3.14 in for pi. And that takes care of my substitution. This, of course, was the formula. All right, so all I have left to do then is the arithmetic. There's not a lot to do here. You could just type this straight into your calculator, especially if your calculator does fractions well. I will tell you that 4 to the third power is equal to 64, but even that could be typed right into your calculator. 4/3 times 3.14 times 4 to the third power. And if you try this on your own, I think what you'll end up with is 267.94. And since I am supposed to round to the nearest tenth, my final result would be 267.9 cubic inches. And I have found the volume of the sphere. All right, I'm only going to do one of those because I think those are relatively easy. The other two examples are finding the radius, which students generally find more difficult. Let's go to it here. The volume of a sphere is 7,234.56 cubic inches. Find the radius. So again, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write down the formula. 4/3 times pi times the radius cubed. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the substitution. So I will substitute in the numbers I was given, and I will solve for the variables that I do not know. I was given the volume here. The volume is 7,234.56. The 4/3 can stay. I'm going to substitute 3.14 for pi. And the r is what I'm trying to solve for, so that's going to stay in the problem. The first thing I might do here is, I might go ahead and get rid of the fraction. Right? I don't really like the 4/3 in the problem, so, eventually my goal is to get the r cubed by itself. And to get the r cubed by itself, I need to get rid of these other two numbers. I'm going to start by getting rid of the 4/3, And to do that, I'm going to multiply both sides by its reciprocal, right? You get rid of a fraction by multiplying both sides by the reciprocal. So when I multiply both sides by 3/4, on the left side of the problem, I end up with 54, 25, 92. And on the right side of the problem, I now just have 3.14 r cubed. And I have successfully eliminated the 4/3. I think the next thing I'm going to do is eliminate the 3.14. I'm going to divide both sides by 3.14. And when I go ahead and do that, on the left side, I end up with 1,728. And on the right side, I end up with just r to the 3rd power. I think I have now successfully eliminated the 3.14. And then the last thing is to get rid of the cube, right? And to get rid of the cube, we are going to take the cube root of both sides. So on your calculator, that would be the little button that looks like that, the cube root, not the square root, the cube root. And when I take the cube root of 1,728, I think I end up with 12. So I have now found that the radius would be 12 inches. And I have successfully solved for r. All right, last example and we're done. The reason this example is maybe a little more difficult or easy, I'm not sure, is it's got a really yucky number, right? 457 1/3. And the volume of the sphere includes pi in it. So this is the exact volume, not the volume that was rounded to the nearest tenth like we saw in the last problem. So, to solve this, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write down the formula like I always do. 4/3 pi r cubed. And I'm going to go ahead and do my substitution. I'm going to substitute 457 1/3 pi in for the volume. This time I'm going to not substitute 3.14 in for pi. And I end up with that. So all I did here was I went ahead and did my substitution. Now the reason I did not substitute 3.14 in for pi is because the left side of the problem had pi in it. So I just left the pi's on both sides because the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to divide both sides by pi to cancel it out. So that might look like divide by pi, and it goes away. And I am left with 457 1/3 equals 4/3 r cubed. The next thing I want to get rid of is the fraction, so that the r cubed can stand alone. And to get rid of the 4/3, to get rid of the fraction, I'm going to multiply both sides by the reciprocal of the fraction, which is 3/4. That gives me, let's see, on the left side, it gives me 343. And on the right side, it gives me r to the 3rd. You should try that on a calculator. See if you can multiply 457 1/3 by 3/4 and get 343. Make sure you know how to do that. And then the last thing for me to get rid of is the cube here. And of course, to get rid of a cube, we take the cube root. So I'm going to go ahead and take the cube root of both sides. And when I take the cube root of 343, I end up with 7. So I can now say that the radius is 7 centimeters. Notice I include the units on the answer. There you go. Quick and easy. Let's do the homework.